Hi, this is Kelly Elvin with Golf Life Navigators. Thanks for joining us for yet another edition of Voices of the Game, where we spend some time reminiscing with some of the outstanding media who've covered our game down through the years. And it is an absolute honor to be joined today by the voice of CBS Sports, three-time Emmy Award winner, five-time National Sportscaster of the Year, Jim Nantz. Thanks for being with us.
Kelly, it's great to catch up with you, and thank you so much for including me. It's an honor to be a part of it.
Jim, I'd like to touch on two particular events that will always be part of the golf fabric. And your very first events, if you will, the very first event that you ever worked for CBS Sports on their golf team, 1986, at the Masters. Your first Masters, that is. Is that correct?
Yep, that's correct. It's my first Masters. I had done a couple of tournaments before that leading up to it. I've been hired in August of 1985 by CBS to be the college football studio host. And that transitioned then into basketball during the winter months and a couple of golf appearances at Pebble Beach and at Doral. Now I showed up at Augusta. I was 26 years old, and the legendary Frank Cherkinian, who you knew well,
Sure.
Frank assigned me to the 16th hole at the Masters. And, I mean, it was a pretty weighty assignment for a kid who had, again, this obsession, compulsion to one day be doing that, to be broadcasting the Masters. I probably never let them in on the fact this was so deeply personal and embedded in my heart that I wanted to broadcast this event more than anything I want to do in my life. And, I had to contain all of that that week and harness it and be a professional broadcaster. And I happened to walk right into Nicklaus's historic 6th green jacket winning performance. And, some pivotal things happened at the 16th hole where I was positioned. He made a birdie in that remarkable charge, that remarkable 30 on the second 9, and he tied the lead at my hole. And it's still to this day, now all these years later, I've now broadcast 33 Masters tournaments. I still can't believe that I happen to have the good fortune of walking into arguably the most important event in the history of the sport.
Jim, what was the feeling for you in that booth, back of 16 green, when Jack made birdie? What was the sound like? What was pulsing through your body? And also, what did your great, great friend, Ken Venturi, say to you at the end of the day, at the end of that Masters, that I know a great line that you'll always remember?
Well, I had a lot of feelings, truly, running through my head at that time. There was a lot of nervous energy, and coming with that is more than a little bit of fear that the moment might have been just a little too big for me. I had no experience of broadcasting the Masters tournament. Now suddenly Jack Nicklaus is standing over 3.5 footers to tie the lead. I mean, it's inconceivable for me at that time. But at the same time, I had enough experience that I felt a level of confidence that I was born to do this. I'd had dreamt it for years. Not that gives you the skill level, but I'd applied the craft enough, and I'd put myself mentally in that position enough times to where it had a little bit of a feeling of second nature to me. So Jack makes the birdie putt. I make the proclamation that there's no doubt about it. The bear has come out of hibernation, and I felt pretty good about the line. And then I began to get a bit consumed with some doubt that where did that line come from? How did that just roll off my tongue? Without really giving a lot of thought. Had somebody already said that line, perhaps earlier on the broadcast? We had announcers starting at the 10th hole. I was all the way up at 16. Was that an original line? Had it just plagiarized something else that someone else had said? Anyway, came back to the compound. On my way to the compound, Venturi, who was a treasured friend, pulled up in a golf cart, asked me to jump in. He'd give me a ride back to the compound. He congratulated me on my first Masters. Kenny was obviously on such a high of what had just transpired. He had just seen Nicklaus win this match that no one, this final round that no one could have seen coming. And Kenny just said, very directly to me. He said, Jimmy, how old are you, son? And I said, I'm 26, sir. He said, I'm going to make a prediction. You may one day be able to say you're the first ever broadcast 50 Masters, which was a profound thing for him to say.
Wow.
I've just done my first. Yes. He said, but I can promise you one thing. You will never live to see another day greater than this at Augusta. So I had a whole lot of, again, different feelings running through my mind. One was that Venturi recognized at least enough of an ability that he thought enough of me to make that declaration. And then at the same time, the idea that one day I would do 50, I mean, I was just trying to survive to do the next year. And then for him to say that you'll never see a day greater than this around here, I thought, well, it's kind of a shame that there's never going to be another day greater than this. It's all downhill after that. But, Kelly, what he really did, what Ken Venturi did at that moment is he really kind of defined my career goal. I always wanted to get to CBS, and I was, months into my foray at CBS. But now Kenny had basically given me a goal, a longevity goal that I still am in pursuit of course, today.
And Jim, I've got to believe that all those years in the booth with him on back of 18 were such special times. Ken loved the game and loved to be able to communicate the nuances of the game to the audience watching PGA Tour events, watching the Masters, PGA Championship, and so forth. He was a really special guy, wasn't he?
He was an unbelievably special guy who I learned so many things from Ken, including just the appreciation of the traditions of the sport. I think that's why I reside in Pebble Beach, and I even have ratcheted up my deep love for the sport by holding on to, his traditions and values and living a golf lifestyle. I mean, Ken always looked like a guy who woke up in the morning, got dressed, and was on his way to a country club. He just had that classical Ken Venturi look. You know what I'm talking about.
I do,
and,
sure.
He just he upheld the virtues of the sport in such a wonderful way. He passed away 5 years ago this month, and his last show was on June 2nd, 2002. So we're right around the anniversary date of that. Obviously, I think of Ken all the time, and in a perfect symbol of symmetry. When he passed away, his great boys, Matt and Tim Venturi, offered me Ken's golf cart. Well, I'd been in Ken's golf cart a number of times when visiting him at his home, where he retired down in Palm Springs and Rancho Mirage, California. And it was a beautiful, like Bentley-like customized cart that Ken sped around from driving range to restaurants to lunch. I mean, it was a sight to behold. So I didn't have a golf cart. I never really had given it any thought. But the idea that I could have Ken's golf cart and drive around and figuratively have him riding always by my side, I like that. And the fact that I could have Ken figuratively with me at Pebble Beach every day that I go out on my golf cart, I like that. So the cart is a big symbol for me of Ken, and I'm honored that the boys wanted me to have the cart. And it's just like he left it. It's pristine. There's actually a 4-speaker CD player that's in the cart, and there's a CD of his great friend Frank Sinatra's greatest hits. Kenny, when he last used the cart, he left a sleeve of Titleist golf balls, a glove, and a USGA rule book in the glove compartment. It's still in there to this day. Yeah, I'm a sentimentalist, as you can tell.
Yeah, you are.
And that was part of what made Kenny special too. Yep.
Oh my gosh. Well, from 1986 and that historic final round at Augusta, fast forward 5 years to when CBS Sports renewed the rights to broadcast the PGA Championship after a number of years of hiatus. ABC Sports had covered it. I think 58 when the first PGA Championship went to stroke play. I believe that CBS Sports covered it those years, but it wasn't until 1991 that the rights went back to CBS. And really, Jim, the miracle of miracles in golf, if you will, John Daly, the ninth alternate at Crooked Stick.
Yeah.
Ken Anderson, my buddy at the PGA, tracked him down. Kenny didn't even know who he was. Somehow John made his way there, and the legend of John Daly began. What do you recall from those really incredible 4 days outside of Indianapolis?
Well, I remember it vividly. He drove basically all night long from Arkansas. John has never been a guy who likes to fly. He's got a fear of flying, and he made his way all the way from Dardanelle, Arkansas to Crooked Stick, and his way all the way from Dardanelle, Arkansas to Crooked Stick, and shot 69 somehow the first day, and no one paid much attention to it. But the second day, everybody started to notice there was something about this guy who was driving at miles. And, of course, he went on to win, and I presented him the Wanamaker Trophy on the 18th green. We had Summerall and Venturi were the 18th hole announcers at the time. And to my astonishment, as we were there giving him the trophy, John, the first thing he did was he said he was opening up a scholarship fund for two little girls who had lost their third PGA to a lightning strike.
Yes.
This gentleman had passed away on site, hit by lightning, struck by lightning on Thursday, getting out of his car in the parking lot to attend the tournament. He's a father of two young kids. And John, here he was with no money. And the first prize check, you can look it up, was $230,000. And John announced right there to the nation and to everyone gathered at Crooked Stick, the first 30 of that 230 was going to start a scholarship fund for the two little girls.
Oh, he has a big heart, doesn't he, Jim? He's had a huge heart.
He does, and that's just, the game has a big heart. It was another example, again, of how many times this game shines. People, again, I so often feel that on the outside of the sport don't get it. They've got all kinds of misconceptions and mistruths and stereotypes they want to attach to the sport. But the giving nature of golf exceeds any other sport by far. And that was just yet another example of it on that day in 1991.
Jim, was there a particular moment from that final round with John Daly in 91 or over those 4 days that for you stood out as this legend grew and the crowd started to go and went crazy, and it became he became a national culture phenom within just a couple of within a weekend?
Well, what I really remember is the story building, and as I mentioned, it started to get big on Friday, and then on Saturday, there we are on CBS, and he took control of the tournament. My biggest memory of him of that weekend is not what he did on the course, and this is aside to again his charitable heart once he did win, but my biggest memory otherwise took place Saturday night. Word got out that John was going to attend a preseason football game. The Indianapolis Colts were playing the Seattle Seahawks at the old RCA Dome. So, I thought, I want to go see this because the word was out that John was between the third and fourth quarters during that break in action. He was going to go out and attempt a field goal. One of the things everybody knew about John is he had played high school football and was a place kicker. Somehow somebody with the Colts came up with this great idea. Let's bring John Daly over and let him try a field goal during our preseason game. So I went to the game to watch Daly kick a field goal. I don't remember whether he made it or not. I remember he was a straight-on kicker, very old school style, Tom Dempsey-like. But I went to the Dome that Saturday night after we'd had a 5-hour broadcast, and sat there and watched John Daly receive this standing ovation and attempt a field goal at an NFL preseason game. How about that? I haven't thought of that until you just pulled it out of me. I haven't thought of that in 20-something years, but it was like a story that was just to say it was a circus act or circus atmosphere kind of degrades it a little bit, because but it did have some really strange circus-like kind of parts to it. The story in itself, the ninth alternate driving all night, a guy that hits it longer than anyone had ever seen at that time, a guy that is in the middle of winning a major championship goes out to a preseason football game and actually tries to kick a field goal, risking the chance of pulling a hamstring.
Sure.
I mean, all of this. It's just, how did it happen? I have no idea.
Jim, I was with him the next spring at a media day ahead of the PGA Championship at Bellerive, and it was like almost being with Babe Ruth, if a modern day Babe Ruth, in terms of the way people looked at him. And of course, that day he took batting practice with the St. Louis Cardinals, which is the team he had grown up worshiping. So, yeah, John's never been afraid to put himself out there, has he?
He's the one guy that would still do that to this day. Today, the modern day younger player would be advised, don't you dare do that. Don't get anywhere near a batting cage. Don't go out on the field and risk a leg injury, particularly on the eve of the final round of a major championship you're winning. I mean, no one would do that. But John doesn't care. And the next week after the Crooked Stick conquest, the tour was at Castle Pines. And John somehow got word to all of us at CBS he wanted to get together with the CBS golf team and show his appreciation for what he felt were nice remarks we'd made about him on the air. So we did. And somebody at CBS came up with the idea, let's send him out to the old Stapleton Airport, which had just been closed as they had built the new airport at Denver. And they put John on an old runway, and they had him tee up a golf ball. Again, we're at altitude. We're in Colorado, and they let John hit some drives with 2 or 3 camera coverage, and he teed up a driver. We got a couple of them on tape of him hitting one straight right down the runway, and the ball just disappeared from sight. There's no telling how many hundreds of yards that ball ended up traveling once it rolled out, but we recorded it.
Oh, my God. As we close with Jim Nantz, Jim, we are recording this in May of 2018 with the 100th PGA Championship just a few months away in St. Louis at Bellerive. 100 years of a remarkable championship. Daly's, you referenced in 91, so many great PGA champions through the years. To be able to celebrate a century of PGA champions and at a great golf course at Bellerive in St. Louis, I know you're looking forward to that.
I am so honored to be able to be part of the storytelling part of that. The ones who are documenting this historic milestone PGA means the world to me. I look forward to returning to Bellerive. It is a fantastic site. And look, I feel like I know the history of the PGA of America about as well as anyone. I know how much it's meant to you and your family.
Yes.
I grew up working for a PGA professional in New Jersey, who was one of the biggest influences in my life. I by the way, am beginning to later in the summer write a column on a monthly basis for Golf Digest, and it's going to debut in August. That my first column is going to be about my love and respect for the PGA professional, the people who represent our game really above and beyond and more than anyone else. I know it because I've been on the inside of it, not just as a broadcaster of it, more specifically as someone who worked for a PGA professional for 5 years as a kid. I understand all the nuance that goes into this job, and I have just a world of respect for the PGA of America to be able to, again, be the documentarian of the 100th. It's a big deal to me. It's going to be one of the real honors of my career.
Well, Jim Nantz, it's been a real honor to spend some time with you reminiscing about some of the special events in golf and to have even a greater understanding of your passion for the game. And your parents did you well, Mr. Nantz, by taking you on those trips to provide you the opportunity to be around golf at a young age, at a very high level at a young age, and you've achieved so many of your dreams. I know that the game is so much better. Any thoughts as we conclude, Jim, as we look ahead to the remainder of the golf season this year?
It's just we're having at breakneck speed. We're having new young stars emerge. Recently, Aaron Wise winning the Nelson, and the way that he won and the swing that we saw.
Yeah.
3 months ago, no one would have identified him as an up-and-coming rising star. And now suddenly you look at that 1 week at the Nelson and you think, you know what, this guy might be a multiple major champion. And there are others out there. Joaquin Neiman. I mean, I don't even want to start rattling off names. The game, as much as so many people want to try to say that it's depending on one star or one,
Yes.
we really need, we need Phil and Tiger to play well for the game to survive, and all these kind of outrageous things to say. Sure, I love seeing them play well, and they have done tremendous things for the sport. But I think the game is in a really good place. This young brigade is so talented, and I just mentioned two basic unknowns to most of, basically two unknowns to the rest of the world 6 months ago. And who knows, maybe they are going to become the faces of the sport. And I haven't even mentioned to this point the Spieths and Thomases and Dustin Johnsons and all these guys. And McIlroy's not going anywhere except up. And Jason Day. I hate to even start rattling off names. The game is in a sensational place at that level. At the everyday level, the game is in great shape because the stewards of the sport care so deeply about it and do right things. I'm getting back to the PGA professional. Thank you in closing for what you said about my parents. I was so fortunate to have unbelievable folks, and they did they did a lot of things that were right by me that I can never, ever repay. I can just try to emulate them the best I can. And your parents, the exact same way, Kelly.
That's right.
Didn't get to know your mom very well, but I certainly did get to know the great Max Elbin. And, man, that was one of the great gifts of my life, is to be able to spend time with him and see all that he gave back to the sport. And if you had to try to draw up someone who would be like the walking embodiment of the sport, who handled himself in a way that represented the game just every day, Max would be that guy that you would look up and say, oh, that's golf right there. See Max Elbin? That's what it looks like.
Jim, you touched my heart, and I greatly appreciate those words about my father, who was president of the PGA in the late 60s, was the head professional at Burning Tree Club outside of Washington for 50 years. And as you say, so many great people in our game. And it is in good shape, Jim Nantz. It really is as we go forward. Thank you so much for this time. Thank you for all that you do on an ongoing basis as you sit now next to Sir Nick Faldo and painting such a wonderful picture of our game to the many who enjoy it. Thanks again, Jim.
Kelly, it was an honor to visit with you, and thank you for allowing me or taking me to a place that brought out some stories that have been waiting to be told, I guess, that you drew them out of me. Thank you, my friend. I hope our paths will cross at Belle Reve this summer.
I believe they will. Thanks so much again, Jim.
Thank you so much now. Bye-bye now.
This is Kelly Elbin with Golf Life Navigators. Thanks again for joining us for a very special edition of Voices of the Game with Jim Nantz. We'll see you at the club.